George Washington Carver High School looms solemnly above the concrete flooring. In front, a statue of George Washington Carver himself, fingering a plant, stands on a bronze pedestal. The smell and noise of the factory nearby disturbs the serene atmosphere surrounding the school. Despite the outward look of a high school full of nostalgic memories and triumphs, behind the sunlit courtyard lies over 2 decades of a fight for equality in education and the sacrifice of happiness for the greater good. In the 1950s, the rise and fall of Carver High School created a 2-part turning point in Arizona's education system and in the United States. This school provided exceptional education to its students and encouraged pride in their ethnicity, despite being morally condemned due to segregation. The subsequent closure of Carver High sparked a second turning point, desegregating the Phoenix Union High School District, serving as a precedent for the Brown v. Board of Education court case, desegregating schools nationwide. The significance of both turning points lies in their demonstration of the power of community support, pride in one's ethnicity, and access to quality education for all races. Although Arizona claimed less stringent segregation than the Deep South, racial prejudice started even before its statehood. The disenfranchisement laws that divided the nation also separated Arizona's white residents from their black counterparts, resulting in a lack of understanding within communities. Despite the lack of fear of mob violence towards black Phoenicians until the 1920s, the Ku Klux Klan did penetrate Arizona to instill submission and fear into the black community. As rebellion against the KKK ensued through protests, offended whites sought to separate themselves from blacks through racial segregation completely. Racially segregated schools, buses, restaurants, and other facilities, more often than not, favored whites with better amenities despite the separate but equal ruling after Plessy versus Ferguson. Campaigns against school segregation arose after the proposition of allowing school segregation was passed in March 1909. Although the governor of Arizona, Joseph H. Kibbe, vetoed the proposition, the segregation of schools became a reality in Phoenix in 1910. Segregated black schools often lacked proper funding, leading to a shortage of teachers and inadequate school equipment. Students were crowded into small classrooms or even basements. The lack of resources, such as books and other materials that valued ideas of basic human rights or independence, meant that students did not receive quality education. Initially, parents were skeptical of the location of the school, refusing to send their children to Carver, fearing that they would suffer from the effects of being near a busy industrial area and having to cross train tracks every day on their way to school. Despite the offerings of teachers to drive students to school and back, the fact remains that Carver was located in a remote and dangerous area. However, as the number of students increased, Carver set out to provide their students with quality education to compensate for the school's location, beginning in 1926. Carver changed education for many black students, as they went from being crowded into a basement with shields around their desks to being taught by master's degree earning teachers.
They did not have lab equipment. They did not have a lot of athletic equipment. They did not have current or new books for instructions. But the teachers made up for what was lacking in material things because they were great resources.
Under W.A. Robinson's leadership and determination as the school's new principal beginning in 1945, Carver High blossomed as the black community's pride. The school served as a safe haven for students where they were freely able to express their thoughts and opinions. However, when segregation was ruled unconstitutional in 1953, Carver was forced to close its doors in 1954, placing students across the valley and shattering the relationships that had been built over the years. Following Carver's closure, the students celebrated the end of a chapter of racial inequality in Arizona, but grieved for the loss of the community fostered in the school. It was a safe space for individuals to share their common experiences, values, hopes, fears, and aspirations for the future. Close bonds between teachers and students played crucial roles in the mental well-being of each student, contrasting past generations and contributing to the positive learning environment. The faculty's commitment to the success of each and every student reinforced the sense of community, as they worked together to overcome difficult challenges that were faced and celebrated the achievements made along the way. Whether through sports, clubs, or cultural events, students had opportunities to engage with each other, building friendships that extended outside the classroom. After school segregation ended, Carver High and Phoenix Union High, one of the prosperous high schools in the Phoenix Union District, were required to integrate their students. Reshaping the educational landscape, broadening the community over time, Carver High and Phoenix Union's integration established a more diverse and inclusive learning environment for all students. Having access to a more diverse administration and more inclusive studies with a variety of perspectives prepared students for the hardships of a globally connected world. In contrast, problems arose from such integration, particularly how Black children were often shunned by their white counterparts. Many Black students were often bullied and teased by their peers, while their teachers turned a blind eye to their sufferings.
They actually integrated the schools and they saw a lot of animosity, a lot of hatred. Okay? And a lot of them didn't want to continue on because they were constantly graded, bullied, talked about, they had a hard time getting to school. And so when we look at that as an overall concept, that can be really difficult to actually just do one thing you want to do, which is just learn. And I think that for some years, that was a difficult situation. You have more resources now and more opportunity, but you're dealing with a lot of hatred that you weren't necessarily dealing with when you were, at the deep.
Despite the difficulties of both Black and white students in their newly joined schools, the integration was still a significant step in the desegregation of schools in the United States. The Supreme Court noted the Carver High and Phoenix Union integration case during the nationally recognized Brown v. Board of Education decision. This historic judgment marked the end of the separate but equal precedent set in the United States almost 60 years before, and proved that separating children by race in schooling is unconstitutional. Thanks to the momentous progress of Carver High School, its integration, and Carver's students' sacrifices of happiness, today, students in integrated schools across the country have the opportunity to interact with peers from different walks of life. Just as Martin Luther King Jr. sacrificed his life for the rights of Blacks in America, Joseph Kibbe sacrificed his reputation for equality among races. All work towards a common goal: to provide the hope of equality for future generations. Today, Carver High School is a museum, purchased by alumni in 1996, filled with the most current educational and media-rich resources related to the African American experience that continues to inspire people of all ages and ethnic backgrounds to explore the important role of African Americans in shaping the history of Arizona.